Aisha sat quietly in her small apartment, staring at the notice on the door. It was from her landlord, Rahim, reminding her that the rent was due again. She had lost her job 2 weeks ago, and despite trying everywhere, no one had called her back. Her savings were gone, and every day felt heavier than the last. That evening, her phone buzzed with a message from Rahim: "Come to my house this evening. We need to talk about the rent." Aisha hesitated for a long time. Rahim had always been polite but distant. He was known in the building as a serious man who didn't like late payments. Still, there was something about his message that didn't sound angry, just strange. After thinking for hours, she decided to go. She wanted to explain her situation honestly and hope for a little time. When she reached his house, the sky had turned dark. The old wooden door creaked as Rahim opened it. He smiled faintly and told her to come in. The house smelled of tea and old books. He offered her a seat and poured 2 cups of tea. "I know times are tough," he said calmly. "You've always been a good tenant, and I don't want to make things difficult for you." Aisha felt a small wave of relief and said she would try to arrange the money soon. But Rahim leaned back, looking at her quietly for a moment. "Sometimes," he said softly, "rent isn't always about money. Sometimes people can help in other ways." His tone was slow and thoughtful, yet it made Aisha uncomfortable. She didn't understand what he meant, but she nodded politely, not wanting to seem rude. The rest of the conversation drifted between small talk and long pauses. Every time Rahim looked at her, she felt something uneasy in his silence, something she couldn't quite explain. When she finally stood up to leave, he walked her to the door. "Don't worry too much," he said in a calm voice. "Everything will work out. Just remember what I said." Outside, the night air felt cold and heavy. Aisha walked back to her apartment, Rahim's words echoing in her mind. She couldn't tell if he was trying to help or hinting at something else. She closed the door behind her, leaned against the wall, and took a deep breath. For the first time, she felt that her rent problem was not just about money anymore, it was about something far more complicated that she didn't yet understand. A few days passed, and Aisha tried to focus on finding work. She sent out job applications, made calls, and even visited a few offices in person, but nothing worked. Each rejection made her more anxious. Just when she was starting to lose hope, she found a small note slipped under her door. It was from Rahim. "If you're still struggling, come over. I have an idea that might help you." She held the note in her hand for a long time, unsure what to do. Rahim's words from before still made her uneasy, but she needed time, and maybe he truly wanted to help. That evening, she gathered her courage and went to his house again. Rahim greeted her kindly, as if nothing was wrong. He poured tea and said, "I've been thinking about your situation. You don't need to worry about rent for now." Aisha's eyes widened. "Really?" she asked. He nodded with a small smile. "Yes, but in return, I'd like you to help me with small things: grocery shopping, organizing old papers, maybe reading letters. It's just me here, and it gets lonely." The offer sounded harmless. Aisha felt relieved and agreed. For the next few days, she helped him with little tasks around the house. She cleaned the study, watered plants, and read old letters Rahim's late wife had written years ago. He often talked about how quiet the house had become since her passing. Aisha felt sympathy and thought she was doing something kind, but slowly, things began to change. Rahim started calling her more often, sometimes just to talk, sometimes asking her to come over late in the evening. He began asking personal questions about her family, her friends, and whether she was seeing anyone. His tone was still calm, but there was something possessive in the way he spoke. Aisha tried to stay polite, but she started feeling trapped. Whenever she refused to come over, Rahim would say things like, "I thought we were friends," or "You shouldn't forget who helped you." The kindness in his voice had turned into quiet pressure. One night, as she was leaving his house after helping him organize some papers, Rahim stopped her at the door. "You don't need to look for work right now," he said softly. "You're safe here with me." His words made her heart race. She smiled awkwardly and said she had to go. Walking back home, the streets were empty and silent. The wind carried a strange chill, and Aisha couldn't stop thinking about his tone. What once felt like kindness now felt like control. She realized she might have stepped into something she never agreed to. As she closed her apartment door behind her that night, she whispered to herself, "This isn't help anymore. This is something else." Days passed, and the atmosphere around Aisha grew heavier. Rahim's calls became more frequent, his messages more demanding. At first, she tried to ignore them politely, but the pressure only increased. Every morning, there would be a knock on her door or a message waiting, "You didn't come yesterday," or "I need your help today." It was no longer a favor, it felt like an obligation. Aisha began avoiding him, pretending to be busy, but somehow Rahim always found out when she was home. He would leave food outside her door, or small notes saying, "I'm just trying to take care of you." What once seemed like kindness had turned into control. One afternoon, while Aisha was in the building corridor, she heard Rahim talking on the phone in the next room. His voice was low but firm. "She won't leave. She knows what she owes me," he said. The words hit her like a shock. She froze in place, realizing how differently he saw their connection. To him, her gratitude had become a kind of debt. That evening, she received a call from a company she had applied to. For the first time, someone wanted to interview her. Aisha was overjoyed, finally, a chance to start over. But her happiness didn't last long. The next day, the company called again, saying they had to cancel her interview. The reason left her stunned. "Your landlord spoke to us. He said you're not in a stable situation right now." Her hands trembled as she ended the call. Why would Rahim do that? It suddenly made sense. All the times he told her not to look for work, all the ways he kept her close. He didn't want her to move on, he wanted to keep her dependent. That evening, Aisha walked straight to Rahim's house, her heart pounding. When he opened the door, she said firmly, "You called my workplace, didn't you?" Rahim looked surprised but didn't deny it. "I was just protecting you," he said quietly. "You're not ready yet. You don't see how unsafe the world is." "Protecting me," she repeated, her voice shaking. "You've trapped me here, Rahim. This isn't care, it's control." For a moment, his calm mask broke. His voice rose, "After everything I did for you? You should be grateful." Aisha stepped back, tears stinging her eyes. "You didn't help me out of kindness," she said softly. "You did it to make me stay." She turned toward the door. Rahim didn't stop her, but his final words echoed behind her like a shadow, "You'll come back. No one will care for you like I did." Outside, rain had started to fall again, cold and steady. Aisha walked away without looking back. Each step felt heavy but freeing. The street was dark, yet she felt lighter than she had in weeks. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew she'd face it on her own terms. For the first time in a long while, she felt something powerful stirring inside her, freedom, born from courage. Weeks went by after Aisha left Rahim's house. The first few days were difficult. She had no savings, no job, and no idea where to start. But she refused to go back. She stayed with a friend for a short while, worked part-time at a small cafe, and slowly began piecing her life together again. Each morning felt uncertain, but every night she reminded herself that peace was worth more than comfort. Over time, things started to change. She saved enough to rent a small room of her own, simple but hers alone. There were no unexpected knocks on the door, no uneasy conversations, no guilt weighing on her heart. The silence now felt safe, not lonely. She began to smile again, to breathe again. A few months later, Aisha finally found a stable job at a local office. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave her confidence and independence. On her first payday, she treated herself to a small cup of coffee and sat by the window, watching the rain fall outside. The world felt new again, not perfect, but peaceful. One afternoon, when she came home from work, she found a small envelope under her door. There was no name, but she recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from Rahim. For a long moment, she just stared at it, unsure whether to open it. Finally, she did. The letter was short. "Aisha, I know you'll never come back, and you shouldn't. I only wanted to say I'm sorry. I was lonely, and I crossed lines I shouldn't have. I hope you find the peace I couldn't." Aisha folded the letter quietly. There was no anger left inside her, only calm acceptance. She didn't plan to reply, but she silently wished him well. Some people, she realized, hurt others not out of hatred but out of emptiness. That didn't make it right, but it made forgiveness easier. That evening, she went for a walk. The city lights reflected on the wet streets, and the cool breeze brushed against her face. She thought about how far she'd come, from fear to strength, from silence to self-respect. As the rain began to fall again, she whispered to herself, "Freedom has a price, but it's worth paying." She smiled softly, lifting her face toward the sky. In that quiet moment, Aisha knew one thing for sure: she had finally taken her life back. And this time, no one could take it from her again.